Hi. Okay, so we're going to kind of do some parental question and answers. I shot a message to some of my friends and colleagues and said, hey, if you have a little, give me a question, see if I can answer it. And this is by far one of my favorite questions that's come in this week. So I wanted to read it to you, and then we'll just kind of dive into it and see if you can get any tips out of it. I do want to share a book with you. It is The Child Whisperer by Carol Tuttle. If this is your first video with me, you are not new to this book. You know I rave about this book. I've given it to many, many parents and teachers through all of my training. So it's a really great book, and we'll go into that specifically for this video, but I wanted to give her a shout out. You'll definitely, whether you're a parent of littles or any age, this book is going to be a really great tool for you. In addition to, there's another book called Parenting with Love and Logic. That is a great book. It's geared a little bit more to, I think, adults in my opinion, but it has been a great guide for my husband and I. Okay, so let me read the question. It is, how do we facilitate leadership in kiddos while also teaching obedience? This child is resourceful, determined, and smart. I was like definitely resonated with this question because I have one of these children in my house. Obedience, so they're teaching obedience first, of course, because we want our children to follow directions, right? We want them to be respectful. We want them to have standards. We want them to have expectations that they can follow so that they can take that onto life. Absolutely. Okay, so let me just say before we dive into like this character and personality type, I definitely think it's really important to establish and define for you as a parent and your spouse, whether you're co-parenting or doing this on your own, define discipline. What is that going to look like? Are we going to do, spanks when they're necessary? Are we going to have words? Are they going to have a timeout? Are they going to have a space to think about things? These are things that really need to be like thought about, because in the moment, you're going to find that you need a tool and you want to just really have those conversations. And most of you are doing that. And you'll find that maybe that conversation might change because the child personality that you started out with, maybe your first child didn't need those same approaches. And now that you have a different child, the approaches are going to be different, and we're going to talk about that too. And that is completely normal to parent children differently because they're not the same child. Okay, so going back to obedience, we want to define what is disrespectful and isn't disrespectful, and especially for like my husband and I try not to go off on a tangent, but my husband and I have incredibly different parenting styles, and it took us a really long time to kind of come together and set a limit where we did this in the very beginning, where if we didn't agree with approach, we did not talk about it in front of the kids. We talked about it later, just between us, because it is important that the kids see that you guys are united, right? Because they will start playing off of you, or playing you off of each other. So when you're having this discussion of respect and obedience and what's okay, how far is it for them to be disobedient and that kind of thing. So the concept that I really want you to think about is that in children, especially undeveloped children, the littler you can see their character by the time they start walking, right, and talking, and you see their personalities. So that's a really good starting point. Through their development, when they start, every single child will go through this a fight for autonomy, right? That is part of their development. And the younger they are, the harder they're going to fight for that autonomy, right? That's their problem solving. That's how they learn how to problem solve. That's how they learn how to become confident. That's how they learn their purpose. They learn how to be independent. And that could be one of the hardest things that we foster because we are struggling to really find this obedience. Okay, So keep that in the back of your head, you know, that it's not necessarily disobedience and it's not necessarily disrespect. Children don't know how to be disrespectful until we start reinforcing behaviors that we're telling them are disrespectful, and that can be confusing. So when a child is fighting for their autonomy, fighting for their voice, what they want, whatever it is, they are doing it from their autonomous stage. And yes, we want to give them the space to understand that in time. So what that's going to look like is based off of what are your boundaries. Can your child say certain things? Are they going to be allowed to have a conversation? This is where it can become really sticky and you can get into these verbal power struggles, right? Because a lot of parents want to talk to their children, and there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes the more we talk to them, we open that door of a power struggle, and it's no longer talking, it's like negotiating. And we kind of want to shy away from that. We don't want to get into that because that skill will intensify, and nobody wins from a power struggle. You don't win, the child doesn't win, they're not learning anything, so other than to negotiate better. So just kind of keep those things in the back of your mind as we go through this great question. Okay, so this child is described as resourceful, determined, smart. Yes, determined children are the most resourceful people. They are the easiest to get into a power struggle because they want to be right. They are right. What they are doing in their mind is they have a explanation for everything, and they do. So that's where this like map of obedience and like what you're going to define as your limits and what's too far and what's not, that's where this map is going to kind of develop, right? And so we want to give him the space to explore and talk it through, but there also has to be boundaries, and those boundaries are going to be around simple phrases like, when mom says stop, you need to stop. We are no longer talking about this. I understand what you want. I hear you. That's going to be a super key phrase for them to hear. I hear you, but we can't talk about this right now. And that's going to stop any tantrum, because what happens with the power struggle and the negotiating is we're giving them the space to talk and talk and talk. And all that's doing is, or it can get into closer to them. You're letting me talk, but you're not listening. Now you're not listening to me, and you're not giving me what you want, what I want. And now here comes the tantrum. So it's just basically like extending that time before the tantrum happens. And we want to just be clear and concise. So definitely have those, sit down and have that conversation with your spouse or yourself, and even like write it down, like, where are my points where like I've reached the limit, where we are not crossing a line where this can be talked about. You cannot hit. You cannot. There are going to be certain things that there is no negotiating, and you need to be able to have that dialogue and to be able to tell your little guy, whether it's at home or in a classroom, very consistent, concise statements. I can't talk to you about this right now. You are not getting this, whatever it is. Maybe it's something that they wanted to play with, or maybe it's a conversation that they wanted to hold with you because they're trying to talk you into something. So with children that are, of course, determined, I love this word because they want to hear themselves talk. They have to have the last word. And I definitely will say this is my youngest child out of 5, and it really took me a long time to train myself. And there's a couple things that I'm going to mention because as adults, we are human, and at the end of the day, we are multitasking throughout the day, right? And we have to acknowledge and give ourselves just that grace to know, like, yeah, we're tapped out. Our tempers are going to be shorter. Our patience is going to be shorter, and just acknowledge that, because with a determined child, you're going to need a little bit more self-control and self-awareness to go, That wasn't personal. That wasn't disrespectful. I want to give him the time and space, and I want to react in a way that's not reinforcing the negative behaviors, right? And so with my youngest, I've learned that sometimes he just needs to say things to hear it out, to get it out, and it really has nothing to do with me. He's not trying to start a power struggle with me, because I used to get caught in those, like, no, I'm teaching you this. I need to hear you say I'm right. I need to hear you repeat the words that I'm saying. And I had to really, it's very humbling. I had to really step back and pause, take a deep breath, and walk away and come back. And maybe you're still in the same room where you're walking away. Maybe you're just looking up to the sky thinking, how am I going to address this? Because I don't want to react, right? You don't want to react with a frustrating, but you do want to engage so that you are setting that, because you're role modeling, right? You're role modeling this temper, you're role modeling how you react to everything that he's doing. And typically through life, this child is going to get a lot of reactions to what they're doing, because it is extreme, right? It's extreme great ideas that can kind of go a little off the wall and sometimes be way too messy or way too extravagant or just out there, right? Everything is on their shoulders. They wear everything on their sleeves. They say everything, and it can be really hard to educate the adults around you. But that's also going to be a really good tool for you, is to say, hey, listen, this is his personality type. He's a determined child. Please just know that we're not aware of what he's doing, and some of it is not okay, but we are taking a very you want to be aware, but we're taking a very conscious step to reacting and not reacting to his behaviors, because we want him also not to be shut down, but also to learn what we're role modeling for him, and that is the calm behavior. For lack of a better word, we're preventing going into that power struggle. I hope that was too confusing. Okay, so as far as facilitating leadership, these kids, you really can't take leadership away from them. Like there's not a lot you can do. It's just in them, right? It's a part of them. They're doing that. And so if you really want to foster that, I would say, of course, give him purpose. Give him a job at home. If in anything there is a purpose for him to, maybe he can't do something because it's unsafe. There's like a role of something he can't do with unsafe. Give him some type of purpose. I need you. Oh, you're really good at this. I know that you really want that toy right now, and you're going to get a turn with it, and you're so good at waiting. That's purpose right there. I know that you can wait for your turn, because when you get it, you're gonna have the best time with it. So just give him like the confidence of knowing that he's got that self-leadership in him. Give him the time and space to facilitate that, because you really, it is really just all about purpose. You don't, if we are telling him all the time what not to do or correcting him, it can stifle that personality type, right? Because he is a leader. He knows what he wants to do. He's going to go for it. So really help him find his purpose in the moment, especially if it's like a conflict with a sibling, and also like vocalize that to the sibling, right? This is his purpose and this is your purpose, and he's really good at this, and we're going to give him the space to do that. Okay, so I hope I covered obedience a little bit better. I'm going to take a pause and see if I can just reiterate anything that I was thinking about. So taking the pause, taking the break, giving ourselves the grace to not have to have all the answers, and to really just go, okay, how do I get where you're coming from. I understand. I hear you. And you can even just like reiterate what they're saying. that's not an option right now. And just that blanket statement, that's not an option right now. I hear you. I need you. And if there is a tantrum, I'm walking away from your tantrum because I can't understand you and we can't work it out that way. So walking away from a tantrum is, oh, I'll never forget the first time I did this. I was in church and my determined child wanted my attention, but he was not doing it in the appropriate way. And he started melting down, and we were coming back from a potty break, and he literally just flat out flailed his body on the floor, kicking and screaming. And I was like mortified, of course, because this is in church, right? And I'm actually very involved in the church. There are a lot of parents that come to me for advice, right? I've been in this industry for 27 years. I taught in the church. I've been in education for a really long time. And so it was kind of embarrassing, like, oh my gosh, my child is doing this. Like, what is going on? But I just kind of composed myself. I stepped over his little flailing body and just walked around the corner. Mind you, he was not really out of my sight, but I needed him to think I moved on. I was gone. He picked up his little body and he ran to me and immediately said, I'm sorry, I'm done. And I was like, okay, I'm glad to hear that. Are you ready to go back into the church? Because we were kind of in like the Narthox, the place before you go into like the big part of the church where kids can make noise and it's not that big of a deal, right? It's not a disturbance. We call it the Narthox. Okay, so I was there and I said, are you ready to go back into the church? And he's 2. And he said, yes. And I said, okay. I grabbed his hand and we walked into the church and he was silent for the rest of the Mass. I didn't lecture him. I did not correct him. I just basically told him verbally and with my body, I am not doing this. I'm not going to reinforce this behavior. I'm not going to scream at you. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to lecture you, because in that state of mind, he cannot comprehend what I'm saying, to correct it and to change his mood. So I was mesmerized by myself. Like, I had moms look at me, and I had one mom, she looked at me and she was just like, well, like, kudos to you. How did you like have the courage to do that? And we just kind of like chuckled, wiped this, the sweat from our brow and just walked back in. But I'm not kidding you. So a lot of this, the determined child, it is also attention seeking. And so if we buy into that and reinforce that they're going to get our attention through these conversations and these power struggles, and yes, I'm giving you all my attention because you're throwing a tantrum and I don't want you to throw a tantrum. We don't want to reinforce that. And sometimes we don't realize that we are actually reinforcing the negative behavior with all of our attempts to, parent in this very conscious way. So percolate on that a little bit. Think about it. If you have any questions, we can dive a little bit more into conversation. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about this book. So this is The Child Whisperer book by Carol Tuttle. And she has a master's in energetics. And a lot of people, they hear that and go, Miranda, what are you talking about? Like, oh, don't go into like one of those weird, talks. Okay. We have live energy running through our bodies. All of us do. And you might be aware of Carol Tuttle. I'm not sure. I share it with every parent that ever has a parenting question, because it really does help like answer all those character questions. And if you are not like a child development guru like me, or a teacher or in education, and you just kind of don't know where to start, this can be like the backbone to like getting your child. And this was a game changer for me when I was raising, well, I'm still raising kids, don't get me wrong, but when my kids were in like middle school-ish, and when my youngest was in preschool, like this was a game changer for me, not just through my career, but as a parent. And so basically takes you through these 4 different energy types, and everybody has 4, but they have a dominant one. And I'm going to so after I read this book, it's not like a back-to-back book. It's divided into 4 chapters, and it talks on each type. So the 4 types are the fun-loving child, the sensitive child, the determined child, and then the serious child. So if you know my children, you could probably type them just by knowing them. I took this book home and read it. I read the types out loud to them and helped them type each other, because we were coming out of COVID, and it was just like mayhem. And it was like, Mom, you need to parent this kid, and this kid. It was crazy. They were at each other's throats. So to make a long story short, this helped them understand each other and changed the way they talk to each other to get the message through. Siblings are going to be siblings, but if you know your child's energy type, how they move, how they think of things, how they process information, their sensory orientation, if you know all of that, not just by observing them, but as a parent, this book is going to be like, oh my gosh, that describes my child like to the T. And even yourself, like you'll want to type yourself so that you can understand a little bit better on how are my parenting and personality approaches maybe conflicting with my child, and how do I strengthen that, communication. And so this is really like what really helped me, and it gives you experiences from other families and other parents on like their types and how their determined child is described. And it also gives you like statements and like what to say to them and how to really foster that communication, so that you're not screaming at them. So you don't feel like you have to be that mean, bad parent. You are going to have to be a discipline. That's just our role. And you are going to raise your voice. So there's nothing wrong in raising your voice or disciplining in the approach that you want to discipline in. But sometimes gentle parenting can become lack of self-awareness and self-consciousness, because it can become like lazy parenting, and that's something that I really, really acknowledge and try to support parents knowing, because you don't want to get into the habit of always gentle parenting or the concept of gentle parenting, because actually gentle parenting is actually very hard if you're doing it correctly, because you have to be so conscious and so aware as to talk to your children, to not break them down, but to foster their personality. And let's just be honest, like, you're human. They're not going to be able to do that 100% of the time, all the time. So just be really careful and be conscious in how you're really fostering, because you don't want to foster just being kind-hearted and respectful to them. You also want to foster them being respectful to you, and that's kind of where the boundaries are going to come in, and your tolerance, and it's just going to be a straight like, we're not doing this. And so hopefully that was a lot of information. I'm hoping that was helpful to you. I am going to get you a copy of this book because it is such a great read. I do totally get, like, if you are a mom that's in the middle of lots of littles, reading is probably not going to be something that you are able to do, or is just in your day because of your energy. And I totally hear you. They do have it on audio. I think I have another copy, but I also think that they might have it on audio, and it is found on Amazon. But you can even borrow mine. It's not a big deal. But this is definitely something that I think that would definitely serve you, particularly, especially with a determined child and the questions that you have. But I do think that you're doing a great job. I see how you parent. I see the space and the time that you want to give your determined child, and I think that's a really great grounding point. It's just you want to have strength in your material so that you are not reinforcing the negative and the power struggles, if that makes sense. And if there's anything more specific that I can explain, or if this did not explain your question, please tell me so that I can kind of divulge and pick my brain a little bit better to help you out. So I hope that was helpful, and if not, I'm sorry. Sometimes I can go off on tangents, and that can be something for me. I can just look at it and just go, okay, I need to hone in on this question a little bit differently. So God bless and take care, and don't forget to process the plate, and have a great day. Bye-bye.